Hi, it's Dre Griggs of Obsidian Wisdom. Today we'll be discussing the worst retirement mistakes that someone can make and how to avoid them. Some of these strategies are going to be focusing on your time on the job. Some of them are going to be focusing on whether you have a plan in a tax efficient manner. Others are going to just be talking about maybe just some small nuances that you haven't really thought about, but that you'll benefit by planning and knowing ahead of time. Most entrepreneurs and families worry about money. So we created the Wisdomites framework to help you eradicate financial stress, generate a passive income, and build a prosperous retirement strategy. So first we have on our list just some of the obvious ones, right? Not saving your money. So there are three types of ways that we interact with the money. Number one is we spend what we make. Number two is we spend more than what we make. And number three is we spend less than what we make. You want to be in the category where you spend less than what you make. And the reason is pretty straightforward. If you spend what you make, then whether you have a raise or whether you have a demotion, it doesn't really change. You spend all of what you make. So you don't really have any money that's left over. If you're someone that spends more than what you make, regardless of how much money you make, you have a habit of spending more than what you make, and that habit is going to continue. As a result, you'll be going into debt each year. There are people who make a lot of money each year, and they're still going into debt each year because they have a habit of spending more than what they make. If you've ever seen any example of someone who's like won money, an inheritance or a lottery or something of that nature, the habits that they have often surface, and as a result, they end up losing the money roughly in like 3 years. So if that is the case, then realistically, your goal should be to have a proper mindset that enables you to be able to be someone who has millions of dollars. I know that there are people who get in the habit of saving money, which is a great thing. But then when they get close to retirement, they're like, I don't really know what to do about the spending money part anymore, Dre. I've been saving the money for years and decades. I feel really good about saving. I'm great at spending less than what I make. And it really is a shift for them to build comfort in spending their money. And the opposite can also be true, where some of us have a large comfort in spending money and we're very uncomfortable with the idea of saving money. We feel like we don't have any money to set aside. But the reality is, if you do spend all or more than what you have, you will always be working for money, which makes retirement much more difficult. Next, we have on our list, just really want to be mindful of when you quit your job. And what I mean is, on average, I believe the Labor Department says that it's about 12 jobs that each of us will have over our lifespan. And over those times, you're going to be having like employer matches where they're going to be investing in your 401k or your retirement plan. And the only thing they ask of you is a certain number of years for you to work in the company. If you don't meet those years, then you're not what they call vested. And vested just means you don't get to keep the money that they put in. They get their money back when you leave. You can keep the money that you had. And so there's like the money they put in 401k or like profit sharing or different things. And you want to make sure that you're being strategic in your plan. If you find out that you would get a bonus, let's say in April, then you should, if possible, you should stay through April. There's no reason for you to leave in March. And if you feel like if you can't make it work, then you should at least let the future employer know so maybe they can offset it. You want to be upfront with these things. Same would be true as if you were vested after like 3 years and then, they overlooked you for some promotions and you're like, you know what, I'm getting out of here. They work me a lot of hours, not pay me enough. Well, if you only have another month or two from being vested, well, maybe you could wait that month or two so you can take that money with you. You just want to be calculating and thinking about this. You don't want to leave the money on the table if it is within reason. Obviously, I'm not saying you should just work at a job for like another year to 2 or 3 years because you want to have your vesting. But I am saying you just want to have it a part of your consideration when you're deciding when it makes sense for you to leave. Which leads nicely into you just want to make sure you're taking advantage of the entire match. Whatever the employer is giving you as a match, some of them, they're giving you like 3% match. Some of them, it's like they give you 4, 5, 6% match. Others of them, they may only give you like 0.5% for every percent that you invest. And then wherever that number caps out at, you want to invest up to that amount. Your goal should be to get that free 100% return on your investment. Right? If you had hired me and I was like, hey, look, I got you 100% return year over year, you would be like, whoa, that's incredible, right? Because If someone gets like a 10% return, you feel good. If you get a 20% return, you feel great. When someone says they get a 100% return, you're like, that's not possible. Well, that's what an employer match is. That is just the same as getting a 100% return on your investment. So there really is few places that's better for you to put your money. Now, with that said, you don't just want to be investing all your money in the company stock, right? If that's like one of the options, you can still invest in like the normal stock market with the diversification strategies that make sense. You don't want to just be in the company, right? There are lots of companies like Enron, for instance, where they go bankrupt and a large number of their shareholders was the employees. You don't want your entire retirement tied to the company. No matter how great the company may seem, you just want to be diversified like all things. There's really few reasons that you just want to be owning one company and one stock. Now, you may be one of those few reasons, but as a general rule, it does make more sense for you to have diversified. Even if you're in one sector, you still want to be diversified over multiple companies. You don't just want to be in one company. And then that leads us into just investing in the manner in which you invest. Are you being strategic in your investments? What I mean is, are you making a plan where it says, you know what, I'm 10 plus years out from retirement, so I'm being more aggressive in my investments versus when I'm like 2 years out from retirement, I am slowly building a more conservative portfolio, which also could be including when you have, like, let's say you're currently, when you started, you were like, okay, I have like 30% of my money that's in like energies companies. I have like 40% in like tech companies. Well, let's say the tech companies were doing spectacular. And as a result, even though you only want 40% in technologies, what if 70% of your portfolio is in technology? Do you readjust your portfolio? Do you sell off that extra 30% to get back to the 40% that you actually want in technologies? Because if you do, the good news is now you are selling high. You're selling off some of those profits. You're locking in some of those wins. And then as a result, you're going to be buying low. Whatever you have the rest of your distribution set as, you're going to be buying those companies on a discount because you wanted to have like 30% of your portfolio in energy, but energy wasn't doing that great. So energy was only making up like 10% of your portfolio. Well, now you're going to buy an additional 20% in energy, which should be at a great discount, which can be a little nerve-wracking sometimes, I know. But if you pick great companies that you're comfortable with, buying them at a discount shouldn't really bother you, right? If there's a sale on a spectacular like restaurant, like, I don't know, like Ruth Chris, right? You know, I have a bunch of kids. I don't really go out there because they're not going to eat it. And I don't want to go out there if they're not going to eat the food, right? But if Ruth Chris was like, you know what, we have the same food, everything's the exact same, and we're going to do it for like $5. You'd probably go there that day. You'd be like, well, I like them anyways. I'd go any other day. So if you're giving me $5 steaks, let's go for it. Right? Because the company is still great. The product is still great. So you're just getting it at a better price. That's how you should feel about your stocks. If you are comfortable with the portfolios that you have, then as they change, that comfort should remain. And then we want to make sure that we're allocating our money wisely, not only in stocks, but outside of stocks. Whether you're doing like rental properties or whether you have a business that you're investing in, but you do want to make sure you're mindful of the debt. You do not want to be setting yourself up with a bunch of debt in retirement, because as you go to a fixed income, whatever that recurring income is, you don't want to have your money that's completely being allocated towards paying off debt. Debt is just not going to help you in your retirement. You're not only working to pay bills, and you definitely shouldn't be retired paying a bunch of bills. You want to give yourself the ability to be able to say, you know what, I don't really owe a lot of people things. Ideally, I've gotten things in a very reasonable cost of living where you may be able to say, you know what, my need to haves, like my food and my shelter and things like that, that's covered with like my Social Security or my pension, something like that. And then my want to haves, that can be covered with my investments in like different markets or different real estate and things like that, where you're saying, okay, I've gotten my, expenses in a reasonable manner where I don't really need that much of my money to cover that, where I can do a lot of want to haves, which I think is really what the ultimate goal is. So you want to avoid that mistake of just building up a lot of debt as you get closer to retirement. And then the last one that we'll talk about today is you just want to make sure that you're being strategic with not only like your taxes and making sure that your distribution strategy makes sense, where you're working, where so basically you have like your pre-tax assets, that's going to be like your 401k, like your IRAs, your traditional ones, where this is money that you put in pre-tax. So when you take it out, it's going to be taxed. And then you have your after-tax assets. That's going to be things like your Roth and like your real estate and your just regular investments, where this is money that has already been taxed. And then I did something with that money. So Uncle Sam is possibly going to let me get that money out with minimum to no taxes because I've already paid him at least once. And so you want to make sure that you are withdrawing your money in a way that helps you to limit your tax liability, right? You don't want to take money out of like an account before you're 59 and a half. That's going to have a penalty because you don't want to pay a 20% penalty by taking money out of like a 401k early. So you definitely don't want to pull that out if you're retiring before then. And then also, you realistically, if your Roth is going to be your tax-free money and it grows tax-free, well, then that's going to be the last money that you're going to want to pull out because you want to grow as much tax-free money as you possibly can. And so you just want to make sure that you are setting it up in a way that works for you and helps you in your retirement. You want to avoid these general mistakes, and your retirement should work a lot better for you. And as we talked about with Social Security, you already know that the time in which you take it out, it impacts the amount of money that you're going to get from Social Security. The earlier you take it out, the less that they're going to give you. The later that you can wait, the more they're going to give you. If you're able to make it all the way to, I think it's like 68 or 70, then you're going to be able to get the maximum amount out of your Social Security. And on that, if you have any additional retirement questions, I always invite you to check out my free retirement planning video. That is at obsidianwisdom.com/training. In it, I give you the entire Wisdometric framework that I use with my clients to help them eradicate financial stress, generate a passive income, and build a prosperous retirement strategy. Until next time, Wisdomites, remember, wisdom is asking the right questions to allow yourself to get the right answers. Keep asking those questions, and you will keep getting those answers. Continue blessings.